Good morning and welcome to, I've lost number, but I lost count of the numbers, but welcome to maybe number 7 in the MindSET live stream. So my name is Darryl and this is a live stream brought to you by Body and Soul, a charity working with people of all ages and who are experiencing trauma or difficulties regulating their emotions. So I'm a DBT therapist, and MindSET is a simple way that we can share some of the approaches with people who are needing sort of immediate ways to manage distress during this time. And we run these sessions every week. So I wanted to say hi to the new people that are joining us. I think the numbers are increasing every week, which is also increasing my anxiety every week. So it's a chance for me to practice skills. So I thank everyone for that. So welcome. And I'll start by just telling you a little bit about what we're going to do today. So what we're going to do today is we will go back through some of the suggested skills from last week. So I gave you some, we sent you some, or Zoe and I've sent you some tasks that you could do, things that you could practice to help you manage your distress. So last week we did sort of what they call mindfulness of current thoughts. If anyone tried it out, did the homework on that, and they want to ask us any questions or give us any feedback about that, then please feel free to do that. So I'm just gonna check with Zoe. Zoe, are we up and running? Excellent. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we'll do a couple of mindfulness exercises as we go along, and then I'm going to talk to you about something called a non-judgmental stance, and then I'm going to show you a method that you can use for tolerating your distress. I'm going to talk to you about what's called the pros and cons, and in between we will do some little exercises. Okay. Okay, so I'm just wondering if there's any questions, because I'm just wondering if this is connected, because I'm not getting any of the feed at the moment. So excuse me one moment and I'll be right back. I think. All right, I'm going to go back to the group. Apologies for that. That's a technical glitch, but I understand that we are running live. So we'll start with a mindfulness exercise for now. So the task that I'm going to set you for today, right, is what I want you to do. Yeah. And so this is about controlling our attention. So different things are going to happen. You're going to get distracted away from this task that I set you. And what I want you to do is I just want you to keep bringing your mind back to this task. So what I want you to do is with your right foot and your right hand. So with your right hand, I want you to try and draw the number 6 in the air. Yeah. And at the same time, I want you to take your right foot and see if you can turn it clockwise all the time. Yeah. So at the same time, number 6 with your hand and turn your right foot clockwise. Yeah. And we're going to see if you can just keep pulling your attention back to this task. Now, some of you will be judging this task already. What's the point of doing this? But that's okay. See if you can let go of those judgments and just focus on the task. And we're just going to do that for about 1.5 minutes. Okay, so what did you notice while you were doing that? Did you notice how much you got distracted by other thoughts? Were you distracted by body sensations? Were you distracted by other things? Yeah. So when you do notice that you get distracted by other things, I want you to just to practice going back to whatever task that was set. And the idea behind this kind of practice is that we're trying to, as always, trying to control our attention, because it's the easiest thing to control, our attention and where we put it. It's very difficult to control our thoughts. It's very difficult to control our emotions when we're highly distressed. But what we can do is focus our attention in different spots. So when I was doing this, I noticed that I was very distracted by looking at the screen because I'm not getting a feed. I'm not getting the questions and stuff coming. So I noticed I kept wondering about what had gone wrong. I also noticed that I was judging myself because I have a phone with me, and sometimes the questions come through on that. So I was judging myself or not. And all I did was I just kept trying to pull my mind back to the task, which was about with the foot. And even if you got distracted 50 or 60 times during that, it's the practice of doing this that we want. And what this shows, this shows up in brain scans, our ability to tolerate distress. Yeah, it is closely linked with our ability to refocus and control our attention. And you can see this. In brain scans, and they did it. They compared brain scans with people that didn't practice any kind of mindfulness with those of expert practitioners. So that's what that was about. So I'm just going to grab my phone and see if any questions have come in. Okay. So we've got some here. So. Some people are distracted by laughing. Great, yeah. So you noticed that they couldn't stop laughing. That actually it's a very difficult task. Yeah. And so one of the reasons I chose this one was that is that some of the tasks that we get given are impossible. Yeah. And other tasks that we get given are just really difficult. And sometimes knowing the difference between what's impossible and what's very difficult can make a huge difference in our brain. Yeah? And you can see this in examples where people use the word like can't. So when people use words like can't, what happens is that the brain shuts down. The brain shuts down the possibility of even looking for a solution for something. Yeah, and it closes down. Whereas if you were to consider something as very difficult, yeah, it opens up the brain to explore solutions and possibilities. And I know that we were talking about current thoughts or mindfulness of your thoughts last week, but that's one of the ways our thoughts can help or hinder us in terms of being able to tolerate distress. Okay. So some people are saying, so loads of people are really noticing what were the things that were distracting them. Yeah. So I found some people got more distracted as the task got more familiar, right? And you can see this, and you can see this in people who are driving all the time. You know, as people, you know, the first time you learn to drive, your attention's there and you're really focusing on it. Whereas later on, you know, we're much more tempted to look out the window and see who's crashed into who. Okay, so for those of you that noticed that they got distracted, yeah, that's fine, and go back to it. The other thing I want people to do is notice when they were judging, yeah, and when they were judging themselves, because we're going to talk about something called being non-judgmental right now. So judging is. So the idea of being non-judgmental, this is something that we do when we're trying to live more in the moment, and also to prevent ourselves getting emotionally dysregulated. So when you look at the links, so if you think of distress as a chain and a link, a chain of events, yeah. So you go from this point, this moment, yeah, and there are links in the chain to getting distressed. So maybe something happens, yeah, maybe something happens, maybe there's a link where you're vulnerable to something happening, you're tired, you're hungry, things like that. Then something happens that starts you being dysregulated. Then you have a body sensation, then you have thoughts about yourself, then you have emotions, all sorts of things happen, and eventually, yeah, either the explosion happens, or, you know, when I say explosion, I mean the dysregulation happens. And dysregulation can be both passive and active. So you can have a big explosion, or you can collapse down and inwards. But one of the things in this link, in this chain, always, right? I've never seen it not happen this way, is that people start judging. Yeah, and there are different kinds of judgments. Yeah, so people either judge themselves, judge other people, or judge the situation. Yeah, and when we talk about judging, what we're really talking about is things like judging things as good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't. Yeah, think about how often you use those words and how often they lead you to becoming dysregulated. So I'll go through them again. Should, shouldn't, can, can't, fair, unfair, right, wrong, good, bad, yeah, and onwards. These words have a disastrous impact on us. But not only that, other sorts of judgments. So I'm going to talk to you about what non-judgmental is. Yeah? And so what non-judgmental is, it's about taking in the facts, yeah, and not adding to reality. So not taking away that evaluation of good or bad or right or wrong. Yeah, because when we judge, what we're really doing is we are adding something to reality. And when we add something to reality, it takes away our ability to cope with it, right? So I'll give you some examples as we go along. So the first thing about being good or bad is, say you were out at a Chessington World of Adventures, or you were out at a safari park with your family and your loved ones, And as you were out there, and and a lion attacked your family and ate your mom. Yeah. Would you think that was good or bad? Most people, not all of you, but most people would think that was bad. But then what you could say is, well, what would the lion be thinking? And I reckon that lion would probably be thinking, yeah, that's a substantial, tasty snack. Yeah, or tasty meal. So that's an example. Or another example might be, you have a shiny apple in one hand and an apple that's been laying on the table for months in the other. Which would you choose? You may choose the shiny apple, but which would your compost heap want? Or what would nature find most useful? So we're talking about judgments, and the kind of judgments that I'm talking about there's two kinds. There's evaluating, yeah, and there's discriminating, yeah, or judgmental judgments. And what we're talking about is the judgmental judgments. There are some kinds of judgments that we all need to make. I need to make a judgment when I'm crossing the road. I need to make a judgment with can I get to the other side before a car hits me, or or I may need to look in my fridge and I may need to make a judgment about whether some food is safe to eat. So those kind of judgments we all need to make, and even some people are paid to judge. It's the other ones. So it's the other ones that we're really on about. So the question that I have for you is: Have you ever met anyone who's judgmental and not angry? See, being non-judgmental, what it offers you is it offers you a chance to reduce certain intense negative emotions, particularly shame and anxiety. Yeah, and so what happens is that there are shorthand ways of talking. People can develop these shorthand ways of talking that don't really encapsulate the consequences of something. So I'll give you an example. If I look in the fridge, like I was just saying, if I look in the fridge and I see a piece of meat and I say that meat's bad, yeah, what do I really mean when I say that? Well, what I mean is that I'm looking at a piece of meat. If I was to describe the consequences, what I'd be saying is I'm looking in the fridge, that piece of meat is green, it's hairy, it's green, it smells strongly, and if I eat it, I'm going to get sick. And rather than saying it's bad, yeah. So what we're looking at is the difference between judging and describing consequences. Yeah. So if I was to say that my partner is nasty, yeah. Would that lead, if I just called it nasty, how would that lead me to solving anything? If I was to say my partner's dirty, what would that solve? Being judgmental doesn't lead to any kind of solutions. But if I was to describe the consequences, dirty, if I say, well, you're just dirty, right? Yeah, it causes a problem and nothing changes. Whereas if I was to say to her, look, you know what? We agreed that we would do the washing up every other day, yeah, and and you're not doing it, and you're not taking your turn. She has a chance to solve that problem for me, yeah, because I can give her a clue, I can describe, or I might even say something like, look, you're not taking your turn to do the washing up, and it's making me upset because I come down in the mornings and there's dirty dishes everywhere. Yeah. So not judging and describing gives you a chance to solve something and something else. So another example about the way I might do that to myself is if I call myself an idiot, yeah, how can I solve that problem? How can anyone solve that problem? How could you solve the problem of being an idiot? This wouldn't be possible, is it? Well, don't be an idiot. What makes you an idiot? Yeah. If I was to describe what the consequences are, I might say something like, I leave my house every day at 8:30. I start work at 9 o'clock. It takes me 45 minutes to get there, and I keep ending up late. And being late makes me unhappy. Yeah? That's describing the consequences. Yeah? If I do that, or even as you're hearing me do that, loads of you will be generating solutions in your minds about how to change that. Yeah, which would be, we'll just leave 15 minutes earlier. Yeah, and I can keep problem solving if I keep describing, but if I keep judging, I can't. And I'm sure that many of you will notice that in yourselves as well. So the first thing we do is start to practice changing judgments that we have. Yeah. And trying to put them just in a more descriptive way. So the other thing that we can do from this is understand that judgments don't just come from saying things. So sighing, tutting, tone of voice. I love those shoes you've got. Or like, yeah. So it comes from tone, it comes from looks, it comes from inferences as well. Yeah, it comes from body. Comes from body, comes from body language. Yeah. So we're not just talking about one thing here. So the first question I have for all of you is, who do you judge more? Do you judge yourself or others? Or is it both? Or is it situations? Or perhaps what you do is you judge your emotions. That's stupid to be sad. It's pointless to be sad. Yeah? Where does that lead you? Where does judging your emotions lead you? Think about what's it like when you're judged? Nice, huh? Or maybe not. Yeah. So think about how it feels when you're judged. So as I was talking about earlier, when we're judging, we're adding something to reality. And why this is important is because when we're adding to reality, we're often thinking outside of this moment. Yeah, we're often going in different directions in our minds, and that is what really overwhelms us. Is that judgment takes us up another step. So the other thing to do is to notice when you judge others, yeah, or when you judge yourself, because mostly we're judging ourselves because we feel anxious about something. Yeah. So to summarize, what we're after is starting to see, but not evaluating things so much as good or bad or right or wrong. Yeah, is just to focus on the facts. The facts are what we can observe through our senses. That's really what it is. Yeah, to separate evaluations and discriminations. Yeah, and so we're looking to acknowledge our values, our wishes, our emotional reactions, not to judge those. Not even to judge yourself when you're judging. When you catch yourself judging, not even that. So I'm just going to take some questions before you move on. So there's people here talking about judging themselves for their emotions, for feeling sad, and that they find that it only ends up, they end up hating themselves more. Judging for when you fail. Failure is just an attempt at learning something. And everybody attempts to learn something. You don't judge a baby. Babies are always trying. Babies are always trying to do something new. Whenever you see them, they're trying to stand before they can, before they can sit up. They're trying to walk before they can crawl. They're always trying. Imagine if they were judged for that, it would stop any kind of progress. Failing is an important lesson. Other people are saying that they judge the intentions of other people, yeah, and especially if it causes them pain. Look, I love the questions, and I want people to send the questions. Let me know, too fast, too slow, stuff like that would be great. So we're going to send you a worksheet on practicing being non-judgmental. And one of the first things that we could do about it is to start to become aware. Just start to become aware of how much you're judging and when you're judging. Maybe notice how much other people are. So we'll send you a sheet on it. One of the ones that I sometimes suggest to people is get a clicker and count your judgments in a day. Yeah? And start to notice the effect it has on your physiology. Okay, so before we move on, because I'm gonna go through what we call a pros and cons in a minute. I'm just going to read you, as I do each week. I'm just going to read you a story that you can then just have a reflect on. So, a professor was giving a lecture to his students on stress management. He raised a glass of water and he asked the audience, "How heavy do you think this glass of water is?" And the students' answers ranged from 20 grams to 500 grams. The answer was, it doesn't matter on the absolute weight. Yeah, this is what the lecture said. It doesn't matter on the absolute weight. It depends on how long you hold it. You see, if I hold it for a minute, it's okay. If I hold it for an hour, I will have an ache in my right arm. If I hold it for a day, you'll have to call an ambulance. So it is the exact same weight, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it becomes. And so if we carry our burdens all of the time, sooner or later we will not be able to carry on as the burden becomes increasingly heavier. What you have to do is put the glass down, rest for a while before holding it up again. We have to put down our burdens periodically so that we can be refreshed and are able to carry on. And so, in terms of linking this with the non-judgmental, sometimes if we put it down, let's put it down for a while. Yeah, let go of judging ourselves at least for a while, and we can start to notice the differences in that. Okay, so the sessions are 45 minutes, for whoever asked that. So another thing that we're going to talk about now quickly is what we call the pros and cons. And I know most people know the idea of the pros and cons, but I'm going to show it to you in a little bit of a different way. And this can be used, and doing the pros and cons can be used as something that if there is a certain behavior that you don't want to do anymore, I don't know, messaging people when you're anxious, or self-harming, or drinking too much, or too much drug, or anything like that. What you can do beforehand is you can do a pros and cons of it. Yeah, and when you do a pros and cons, I don't want you to do it in the short term. I don't want you to do it how you feel in that moment, because how you feel in that moment, if you're going to have a drink or whatever it is, yeah, you'll probably just go ahead with it. But thinking about it in what we would call a wise mind, or a longer term view. And this is not about, so it's not negative and positive. This is what are the benefits of doing something and the consequences of doing something. Yeah, and we're going to ask ourselves the same question in 4 different ways and see what we come up with. And the idea is that you just look at it and you come up with your own answers on balance. So I'm going to do one on me, which is for eating too much, but you might want to do it on self-harm, you might want to do it on drinking, you might want to do it on eating, you might want to do it on messaging people, all sorts of things. So what you're really looking for is to do it on an urge that you have, and an urge is something that you have a desire to do and not managing to control. Yeah, and what it does is it helps us. When we have urges, it helps us to be less impulsive, because it stretches the time out. between when we're being impulsive and not. So I'll give you an example here, which is, so I've done it on eating lots, because sometimes I definitely go for eating lots. As anyone knows me will tell you, right? So when I think of this, right, what do I think the benefits of eating a lot is? Yeah, what do I think the consequences of eating a lot is? What do I think the consequences of not eating lots and the benefits of not eating lots? Yeah. So the benefits of eating lots for me is that sometimes I feel like I'm treating myself well. So treating myself well. Yeah. The benefit is it actually helps me to slow down. It helps me relax, because I don't want to move, and I'm constantly moving around. So it helps me relax, which helps me watch the TV and different stuff like that. So I just sit there and go, oh, yeah, and I get some relief, and I get a feeling of satisfaction. Yeah. Yeah. So calm. Yeah. So now, what are the consequences as I struggle to stand up and my belly's getting in the way? So what are the consequences of eating a lot, right? So weight gain. I feel sluggish the next day. I judge my actions. I feel embarrassed. I feel shame. You know, sometimes I think about how much I've eaten, and there's other people in the world that don't have enough to eat, so I feel shame. Yeah. And actually that shame that I feel often lasts for days. Yeah. And sometimes I can weigh that against the relief, because the relief that I feel when I get to sit down and watch something, I only feel that that satisfaction. I only feel it for about 30 minutes. Yeah. So these are the pros and cons for me. I get 30 minutes of relief, but days of shame. And another consequence of eating a lot is I have to try to I have to limit my intake. Limit my food intake the rest of the week. Yeah, so I'm constantly thinking, Jesus Christ, I ate a lot. Oops. Right. So now, what would the consequences of me? What would the consequences of me not eating lots? What would that be? What would the consequences of me not eating a lot be? Well, I could eat delicious things. Delicious for me is unhealthy. I could eat unhealthier things every day. Yeah, so I could spread it out. Yeah, every day I could have a treat a day. I would not worry, not weight gain. Less time at the gym. Other consequences of not eating lots is I wouldn't feel shame for not. I would feel less shame. Yeah. So you can see how some of them cross, but not all of them. Not all of them. Yeah. So the consequences of not eating lots. Yeah. And then what I might have as well is I might want to look at the benefits of not eating lots. So the benefits of not eating lots would, again, you see, it goes across. It would be better weight management. confidence, you know, probably self-esteem would probably go up somewhat. Yeah. So I'm just trying to have a look. Yeah, consequences, other consequences of eating lots. I'm going to go for those questions in a bit. Other benefits of not eating lots might be, a consequence of not eating lots would, I'd have to find other ways. I'd have to find other ways to get relief and relax. Yeah, so that might take quite a bit of effort. Yeah, it might take quite a bit of effort to do that. So I'm hoping that you generally get the idea. I'm hoping that you generally get the idea of that. And so what you could do, if you really want to go for it, is you could do a pros and cons like now with a long-term view, and you could do a pros and cons in the moment that you felt distressed, and have a look and compare them, because you probably think quite differently in each time. So, okay, so I'm just going to answer this. So the question is, can the benefits and consequences lists have judgments? Okay, for example, it feels good. Well, what you might do in terms of that, and I'll just be clear about judgments, is that there is a difference between a judgment and a personal opinion. Yeah. So if I say this is a horrible room, yeah, that's a judgment. Yeah, because some of you might like this room. Whereas if I was to say I don't like this room, yeah, that's just my opinion, and I'm not adding anything to reality. Yeah. So can the benefits and consequences list have judgments? For example, it feels good. Well, what you might do is describe it a little bit more when you say it feels good. Or what you might say is, so I noticed that I get relief, or it helps me relax, rather than if it's good or bad. So someone's saying, I often find it difficult to use this skill in the heat of the moment. Yes. Okay. So is there a way of calming myself first? That's a great question. Yes. Because because that's what I'm saying. This is a very difficult skill to use in the moment, right? Because in the moment, the pressure's on, right? In the moment, we're dysregulated. So I would suggest that you do these and keep them around, and do them when you're in a calmer state. Yeah. In that moment, you just want to go for it. You know, if your urge is to drink, in that moment, boom, you have the drink, or with me, you know. So here, in a pro of eating a lot is not only does it help you relax, but it's instant. Yeah. And so if it's instant, it means a consequence of it is that I might have to work a little bit harder in the short term to find something else that's more instant. Yeah. So yes. So I would suggest, of calming yourself first, is I would suggest either one of the tip skills that we did in a previous week, and you can look at all these skills back on the videos. Would be a tip skill or a stop skill. Yeah, introduce those just to give you that distance from the moment and look at it. The other thing to do is to keep reading it. It's to read it every now and then and remind yourself of what you're trying to go for in the longer term. So that would be the thing that I most definitely suggest. Okay, I hope people get the idea behind that, and we're going to send them. Some worksheets that they can do it. So remember, do it on intense urges. Anything that you have intense urges to do, message people or whatever. Okay, so as we start to wind down, I'm going to give you another little exercise that you can do. So I want you to just put your feet on the floor and drop your hands into your lap. Yeah. So we sit so when we're doing mindfulness, we sit in a certain position and we try to communicate this open and more willing posture. So remember going back to what we do with our hands and our chest open up, yeah, so that we can breathe more easily, and that helps our brain to regulate itself. So the first thing I want you to do as you're sitting there is just to start to breathe, or just, I know you're breathing in it anyway, but just to start to notice your breathing. Now sometimes this makes you anxious, but there's no need to do anything with your breathing, just notice it. And I'm hoping that just noticing it will help it slow down all by itself. So as you do that and start to breathe, I'm just going to give you some instructions. Just take one more deep breath. So now looking around the room, I just want you to just five things that you can see. Just list them in your head. 5 things that you can see. And now 5 things that you can hear. Just identify 5 things you can hear. And now try the 5 things that you can feel. These might be your contact with the chair, your feet on the floor, hand touching your body. It's going to get a little bit more difficult. See if you can smell 5 different things. It's going to help if you just close your eyes and see if you can 5 different smells. Okay, now I'm going to see if you can just go through your body and just notice 5 either body sensations or body parts. So see if you can feel either 5 parts of your body, and if you can't feel it, go to them. Like see, so say for example, I'm going to go for my big toe. Just name 5 body parts and just go and see if you can feel it. Now have a look around and see if you can just name 5 colours. And I just want you to go and see if you can just go back to noticing your breathing. Don't do anything with your breathing, just see if you can notice your breathing. And see if you can find that point where your breathing goes from breathing in to breathing out. So you're looking for breathing in and breathing out. And now see if you can notice when you breathe in and out, and see if you can notice the pause in between, so where it flips from in to out. So you're going to notice in, the pause, out, the pause, in. So you can just notice that for just 30 seconds. Okay, and now see if you can notice 5 aches and pains around your body. 5 areas of tightness. And then just go back to your breathing, the in and the out. So you can just keep coming back to it. It doesn't matter how many times you get distracted, just keep going back to it. Okay, so we'll finish there for today. So the sessions are 45 minutes or so. And apologies for the not getting all the questions through today. But I hope you can join us next week. And next week we're going to do some more stuff about mindfulness and some more distress tolerance techniques. We'll send you the information and look out for the other stuff that we're sending you. So I hope you found it a little bit helpful today.